Hallelujah. Oh Lord, we thank you. We thank you. We thank you this morning, Lord. We thank you. It's 11 o'clock and time for our service to begin. My name is Leon. I'll be the pulpit conductor this morning. We want to welcome each and every one to Center of Attraction, where Jesus is the center of attraction. Amen. 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 Jesus is right in the middle of all that we are attracted. Amen. 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 Okay. Amen. We're gonna read our vision and mission statement. Amen. Our vision and mission statement. Amen. To be the best training and evangelistic ministry in the world. Our mission, Center of Attraction exists for the purpose of glorifying the name of Jesus through worship, Christian discipline, and the proclaiming of the gospel. What kind of place is this? A progressive and prosperous place. A place of worship to our God, an apostolic and prophetic place, a place of community and international outreach, a place exploding in growth. And what did Jesus say in St. John 12:32? If I be lifted up from the earth, will draw all men unto me. So what we're going to do today? We're going to lift him up, lift him up, lift Jesus up. Yes, Lord. Hey, for no other reason but to lift up Jesus. But when we lift up Jesus, things start happening. Healing starts coming. Strongholds are broken. Deliverance is here in the name of Jesus. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Thank you, Jesus. Hallelujah. Our scripture today is going to be found in Psalms 118. I'm going to read 24 through 26. And it says, "This is the day which the Lord hath made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. Save now, I beseech thee, O Lord. O Lord, I beseech thee, and send out prosperity." 26. "Blessed be he that cometh in the name of the Lord. We have blessed you out of the house of the Lord." God is the Lord, which hath showed us light, binding the sacrifice with cords, even unto the horns of the altar. 28. "Thou art my God, and I will praise thee. Thou art my God, I will exalt thee." Hallelujah. Thank you, Jesus. Oh, give thanks unto the Lord, for he is good, for his mercy endureth forever. Hallelujah. Mercy endureth forever. Oh, we just give him thanks this morning. We just give him thanks for his son Jesus. Hallelujah. If it not been for Jesus on our side, where will we be? We just thank God for sending his son Jesus to rescue us, to set us for salvation. There is no other name under heaven which men can be saved but by the name of Jesus. Hallelujah. Thank you, Jesus. You're so big, Jesus. Yeah, we thank you. We thank you for your undying love. And we thank you for wrapping us up. Hallelujah. And we thank you. Oh, Lord, we give God all the glory and all the praise. Hallelujah. Thank you, Jesus. Hey, hallelujah. Thank you. And for our praise team. When our praise team come forth, send a couple songs. what has held you back shall be no more. God has said to the body of Christ, press on forward. Don't look back. For I have given you a way. I have given you a way of escaping that when the enemy has thought he had you right. But God says, with victory in me, believe and trust in me and walk forth in my spirit.
You know, worshiping words is coming up where we worship and we do warfare, we worship, and we're believing God for a manifestation of His glory. Praise until you worship, and worship until you stand in His glory. What did I say? Praise until you worship, and worship till you stand in His glory. And when you stand in His glory, you don't have to do anything. God does everything. Miracles begin to happen and manifest. And that's what we're believing God. Somebody say glory! 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 God, you've given us grace and glory. We're believing you, God. You have no respect of person, but you have respect of faith. reach out and touch you. And the Lord spoke to me, even the angels of the little ones, while they were dancing, were moving for family members. When the children dance, let the children dance. Teach the children how to praise Him in the house. Because we're not at home. We're not in the car. We're not looking at TV. Somebody say, we came to participate. Say, God is the audience. We're the participators. God's looking at us. And He wants to see if we're willing to obey Him. Because the world right now is doing everything. But we got something they don't have. We got spiritual power in the name of Jesus. Somebody say, I got the power. I got the power. I got the power in the name of Jesus. Hallelujah. I believe it. I believe it. I believe it. I believe it. It's mine. It's mine.
You can't stop pressing.
ease in Zion. Many are at ease in Zion. And when Prophet Bobby was praying in tongues, it's like God was saying, keep on travailing, keep on travailing, keep on travailing. But he said when a woman is pregnant, the first few months, it's easy. Your stomach's getting a little big. But that last trimester, and when you get in contractions and Braxton Hicks, that baby is on its way to water break, you can't stop it. So keep on pressing until your water breaks, until you give birth to that miracle. What you believe in God for, keep pressing. You can see a manifestation. Don't stop now. Don't have a miscarriage. Don't have an abortion. But keep on going until you see a manifestation of what you're believing God for. Amen.
Praise the Lord, everybody. Praise the Lord. The last 3 weeks, I've been having a vision, especially over the center of attraction and especially over the Michigan region. And it's Ezekiel 37:3-5 says, and he said unto me, Son of man, can these bones live? And I answered and said, O Lord God, thou knowest. Again he said, bones, and said to them, O ye dry bones, hear the word of the Lord. But thus said the Lord, God to these bones, behold, I will cause breath to enter into you, and ye shall live. So every dead situation, every promise of God, you just speak it and say live, and you shall live and not die, and declare the works of the Lord.
Amen. When the elder was prophesying earlier, he was saying, don't look back, and the things that held you back will hold you back no more, and you go forward, press forward. I thought it was some dry land, like dirt or whatever, but then when he said to walk forward and walk in the way, I saw like a lake, a stream of water or something, but it was like illuminated. The way was illuminated, and that was the way that we were supposed to walk. So all the things that held us back was the dry land. The things that God has for us and what he wants us to walk into, it's illuminated now. Now you know where to go. You know the direction. Follow that direction. Amen. Praise the Lord. It's our announcement time. I know, man, we're supposed to be singing at Christ Community. Is that the name of the church? At 4 o'clock today. That's the only announcement that I know of.
All the men are going to sing. Men only.
Men only. All right, we ready. Amen. We practice after church.
Pastor Evans appreciation at the same time as you men go over to Christ Community. So a delegation of us will be going over to Pastor Evans appreciation at 4 o'clock. And the men will go over to Christ Community and take a delegation with them also.
Everybody got that clear? Men, we're going over to Christ Community, taking a delegation, and probably this is going to take a delegation. So, with that announcement, it's offering time now. Yeah. You need an envelope, just raise your hand. We'll be sure to get you an envelope. And to write out a check, write it out to Center of Attraction. Now, any children, they could be, go back to the back now for the children's ministry as we get prepared to hear the word of God, okay? Praise the Lord. We're going to have prophetess giving the word this morning.
Amen.
Amen. Amen. Praise the Lord.
Well, I wasn't here last Sunday. I did have that procedure at the hospital, and it was very successful. Got used to doctors, Dr. Eunice, and he was wonderful, and I was out a day and a half. And they said, take it easy, so I didn't come to church at all Sunday. I took it easy. I came Wednesday, and I'm here today in Jesus' name.
Yes.
And so God is a good God, yes He is.
Yes, He is.
And my husband has been doing everything for me. Bringing me my salad with everything chopped up so fine and beautiful, serving me well. And he's at home right now. So just pray for Apostle. But you know what? God is a good God. And this has been come on, you can bring it to the table. This has been a challenging week. We've had some loved ones going on to heaven. And Apostle went to a service yesterday for one of our brothers, Pastor Swingy at not Resurrection Life, but Kingdom Life. And there was another service at Word of Faith. Linda Pritchard is here. Linda, where are you? Stand up. She was on today. Linda, what was her name?
Monica Haynes Sangster.
Okay, Monica Haynes Sangster. And that was a well-attended funeral. And so was the one at, Pastor Johnson's church. And so, then my cousin passed this week and everything. I still had to cry because it just seemed like I was praying so hard. God give him a miracle. He needed a heart and he needed a kidney. Just went to the hospital to get some stents. He knew that. He went to Ann Arbor. And we were at Pastor Revan's church, and he came over. He says, cousin, I'm going to have surgery Tuesday. I looked at him and said, okay, Billy. And he gave me a big old kiss on the cheek. And this last time I saw him. And so when I heard about the problem with the surgery, I don't believe in God that he would get a miracle. He needed a miracle. He needed a creative miracle, a new heart and a new kidney. But they pulled the plug and he went to heaven a day or so ago. So his funeral was coming up at Christ Community. Pray for the families. Listen, we got to be ready.
Amen.
Yes.
We
We have to occupy until it comes. But we have to believe the word. We have to believe there is a heaven and
Amen.
that there is a hell.
Amen.
There is a heaven to gain and a hell to shun. And that's the basics of the gospel. The wages of sin is death, but the gift of God is eternal life through Jesus Christ. And you must be born again. You got to be saved. We're not playing church games. We're not playing Hollywood saints. We're not standing and grinning trying to get an Oscar up in here because you're trying to look, you're a great actor. You're a great actress. And you don't fool everybody but God. So we got to make sure that we're right with God. We got to make sure that we live a pure life and our heart is right. What did the apostle say? He said, keep your heart pure and your spirit sweet. You can't afford no sin, no leaven in you. You know it's a little leaven that leavens the vine, the little foxes that that spoil the vine, and the little leaven that leavens the whole lump. If you put leaven in a cake, it's gonna rise. Something's gonna rise. Yeah. Little foxes will nibble stuff. So we got to be very careful. We're living in the last days. And it's like that one song we used to sing with the little kids. Give me oil in my lamp. Keep me burning, burning, burning. Give me oil in my lamp, I pray. Give me oil in my lamp. Keep me burning to the break of day. We got to be ready. We got to have oil in our lamps. We can't afford, can I get some of your oil? No, go get your own. I don't work hard for this oil. You can't be a lazy saint and not have no oil. That's what I'm saying. That they think somebody else don't carry them. I call them piggyback saints. Oh, you're too old for me to carry. Get off my back. And my back about ready to break. You're old enough to stand on your own 2 feet. We have come to some people should be teaching others. They should be teachers. But they're not. Aren't you sick of listening to all these people on TV? Go get your own revelation. Go spend some time with God and come out the secret closet with revelation. That's what I want to talk about today, is the tabernacle of David. For about maybe I could say 35, 40 years I've been teaching the same topic. You don't have to change because there's nothing new underneath the sun. But you hear what I said? Nothing new underneath the sun. Come on. And that we have to recognize and understand that whatever we do, let's do it right. Amen. Do it according to Scripture. Amen? Amen. And that we be obedient to God. Because one of the first revelations that the Lord taught me in Apostle was the one on praise and worship. And so I've been teaching praise and worship for a long time. I got books back there that there are college level books. I just made up my mind I'm going to teach from now on till Jesus come. Until I get out of here, I'm going to teach these lessons. Here, pass these out. One of the handouts. Yes. Pass the handouts out from my book, The Tabernacle of David. I got the Tabernacle of Solomon too. I think there's one more, Tabernacle of Moses. About $29 or more. But these are serious books on studying. And a lot of people do not understand why we're doing what we're doing, why we're worshiping the way we're worshiping, and they get caught again in tradition and going through religion or A-B selections. Lift your hands up, let's do a little shout here until at home. But somebody say, much more than that. Much more than that. You got to have a revelation of that God gave us the law. The law was good, it was not evil. You read Romans chapter 7, right? The law was holy and just. But there was something in us that when we saw the law, we couldn't keep the law. Come on. See, it revealed the sin nature within us and how sinful the sin nature is. I'm thinking about doing a series on sin to show you our attitude, how our attitude should be towards sin. And so, because of that sin nature within us, we could not defeat the sin nature. We couldn't defeat it through the law. Because the law was on the outside, but the sin was on the inside. It had gotten to the heart of man. Because it got to Lucifer in heaven. That sin was conceived in his heart. And he caused a rebellion in heaven. Then he came down to the garden and caused Adam and the woman to eat the forbidden fruit. And then he became the prince of this world. He's not the creator. He's just the prince of this world because he took it from Adam and woman and took we call it the purchased possession. There's a couple of scriptures I'm going to go to and go back to that handout. But let me just show you a couple of scriptures I'm talking about. It's in Hebrews, but Romans chapter 7. I was meditating on this. You know how you meditate on scripture? Say, oh Lord, I'm thinking about this scripture. People are saying that we're not under the law. Jesus came to fulfill the law. Amen. No, we're not under the law, but you can't do anything you want to do. You can't sin all you want to. I got me a charge card on sin now. I can charge it up. Amen. That's what some of their attitudes are. Because they're teaching once saved, always saved. Amen. And they're teaching there is no hell. That you can pray people out of hell. Well, that hellfire is not really hellfire. It's imaginary. I think I'll start. I don't know what verse I should start with. Let's look at verse number 4 of Romans 7. Wherefore, my brethren, ye also are become dead to the law by the Christ. So why did Christ die? So we become dead to the law. We couldn't keep the law. So Christ took our place so we could keep the commandments now through him. Right? Wherefore, my brethren, ye also become dead to the law by the body of Christ, that ye should be married to another. So we can't be married to the law and married to Jesus. Then we are bigamous. Either or, who are you going to be married to? Well, we're married to the new covenant. We're married to Jesus. He's the way, the truth, and the life. He's the Christ, the Son of God. He's deity. He's the Ancient of Days. He paid for our sins. So we're married to Jesus. Even to him who was raised from the dead, that's Jesus, that we should bring forth fruit unto God. Why did Jesus die? So we can bring forth fruit. We couldn't do it without him. For when we were in the flesh, The motions of sins which were by the law. Look at here, look at here, look at that verse. For we were in the flesh. This is not good flesh, this is sinful flesh. This is not talking about our body, it's talking about the Adamic nature within you. The motions of sin which were by the law. The law reveals sin. Thou shalt not steal. I'm going to steal. Thou shalt not kill. I'm going to kill somebody. I'm going to covet. I'm going to commit adultery. I'm going to take what doesn't belong to me. See, the law revealed what was in us. It's called the motions of sin. Have you ever felt the motions of sin?
Yeah.
In Galatians, it talks about sin. And I said, there's a feeling when sin is coming. You can feel the motion of it. The motions of sins which were by the law and did work in our members. How do they manifest? Through the hands. Eye gate, the ear gate, the feet gate. Your feet take you to the wrong place. Your eyes watching the wrong thing. You're in the wrong conversations with your mouth. You're hearing the wrong thing. You pick up the wrong thing. It said better for a man not to touch a woman because of fornication. You're going to stir up something. You're going to stir up an emotion. They work on our members to bring forth fruit unto death. Now what kind of fruit is it bringing? Working in our members to bring forth fruit unto what? Death. But now we are delivered from the law, that being dead where we were held, that we should serve in newness of spirit. Now you're born again, you're saved. You're free from the law, you can serve in newness of spirit. But you got to stay in the spirit. You have to obey God. Keep walking in the spirit. And see, the devil wants us to see, he wants us coming to church and not obeying God. Oh, you can't touch no fire and not be burned. That you take your little baby? No, hot. Didn't I tell you not to touch that? I told you not to touch that. Some folks got to learn the hard way. And a lot of us are still hard-headed. Better leave that alone, Still hard-headed. But now we are delivered from the law, that being dead wherein we were held, that we should serve in newness of spirit, but not in the oldness of the letter. What shall I say then? Is it the law sin? God forbid. The law wasn't sin, nay. I had not known sin, but by the law exposed sin for what it was, sin. It was horrible, it was yucky. For if I had not known lust, except the law had said, thou shalt not covet, I wouldn't have known that. So you see, Satan wants us to believe that we don't have to keep the law, but Jesus came to fulfill the law because, see, if you walk in love, you fulfill the law.
Amen. That's right. Amen.
Because love does not lust. Love does not hate. All those things you see in Galatians 5. But sin taking occasion by the commandment wrought in me all manner of concupiscence, all types of sin. For without the law, sin was dead. Well, I didn't know about no sin before there was the law. But I was alive without the law once. But when the commandment came, sin revived and I died. That's Adam and woman. All you have is one commandment. Don't eat of forbidden fruit. You couldn't keep one commandment? Don't talk about them. Y'all know we're in the same condition. And the commandment was ordained to life. Don't eat from any tree. You just can't eat from that one tree. I found it to be unto death, that ate the forbidden fruit. For sin taken occasion by the commandment, don't eat it. See the commandment, don't eat it. But sin taken occasion by the commandment deceived me, and by it slew me. Sin is something else.
Yes.
See, that deception came into Adam and woman. It said Adam transgressed, but the woman was deceived or seduced. It slew both of them, and death came in. Death came in by them breaking the commandment of God. Wherefore, look at verse 12. Wherefore the law is it good? Yeah. Wherefore the law is holy. And the commandment is what? Holy and just and good. So is the law bad?
No.
So we're not under the law, but the law couldn't keep us. The law couldn't save us. The law couldn't deliver us because we were so under sin. Only thing that saved us was grace through Jesus Christ. It's not a works lest any man should boast. You can say, I kept all the commandments but one. You're still guilty. Was it then that which is good made death to me? God forbid. But sin, that it might be appear sin, working death in me, by that which is good, that sin by the commandment might be coming exceedingly sinful. God exposed it, showed you the destruction of sin. For we know that the law is spiritual, but I am carnal, sold under sin. So the law was spiritual, but it couldn't help us. For that which I do, I allow not. For what I would, that I do not. But that I hate, that I do. Well, I try to do right. I told God I was never going to eat that again. Never going to eat chocolate again. Something happens. Somebody brought over a chocolate cake. And somehow, some way that cake just jumped in my mouth. You know, we can tell stories like that. I could just smell cake and I gain weight. We say stuff like that. It's not true. But you know, we have weaknesses in our families. It's called family iniquities. You have to learn how to fight generational curses and family iniquities, environmental sin, the way we've been taught. Some of the stuff is, you know, we have learned behavior. What I hate, that I do. If then I do what I would not, I consent unto the law that it is good. Now there is no more I that doeth it, but sin that dwelleth in me. Do you see that? For that which I do, I allow not. But what I would, that do I not. But what I hate, that I do. You know, that King James is something else, probably better in NIV or a different version. If then I do that which I would not, I consent unto the law that is good. I'm letting the law know you are right, you are good. Now then it is no more I that doeth it, but the sin that dwelleth in me. The law is exposing the sin within. That's why Jesus came to die for sin. Because he knows that we could not overcome it. In our strength, we couldn't. So why am I going to church? God, I'm saved now. You still got to stay in life. You can't leave the life zone. Jesus is the center of attraction. He's the life zone. You stay in life. In him I live and move and I have my being. I got to stay in life. I can't afford to deviate over here or over there. Now some people can do some stuff. I can't do that. When I do it, I get in sin. So we have to find out what we can and cannot do. To whom much is given, much is required. What was required for Moses? I guess he wasn't supposed to hit the rock, and he didn't get to go to the promised land. There's different messages for different saints. Amen. To whom much is given, much is required. Apostle Paul went through a lot, didn't he? But you know he persecuted saints and killed saints, helped kill saints. So he went through a type of prison and spirit, all kinds of things. But he was so humble, he grew and he was great. For the first number, let me say, I think it's 18. For I know that in me not, yes, in my flesh dwelleth no good thing. For to will is present with me, I want to do right, but how to perform that which is good I find not. For the good that I do not, but the evil which I would not, that I do. Now, if I do that I would not, is it more that I do? But sin that dwelleth in me. I find in a law that I would do good, evil is present with me. For I delight in the law of God after the inward man. I want to do what's right. But I see another law in my members, warring against the law of my mind, and bringing me into captivity to the law of sin which is in my members. O wretched man that I am, who shall deliver me from this body of death? I thank God through Jesus Christ our Lord. So then with my mind I serve the law of God, but with the flesh is the law of sin. So see, it's Jesus Christ. Now, this is the best part, Romans chapter 8. A couple of scriptures there. There is therefore now no condemnation to them which are in Christ Jesus. So you got to stay in Christ, who walk not after the flesh. Can we walk after the flesh? Talk to me. Can we walk after the flesh? All that healthy stuff in Galatians 5. We can't walk after the flesh, but after the Spirit. So say, I have to walk after the Spirit. And I have to be taught how to yield to the Spirit. You got to be taught how to yield to Him. For the law of the Spirit of life in Christ Jesus had made me free from the law of sin and death. Somebody say, there's a law in Christ Jesus. It's called Spirit and life. I got to stay in Jesus. I got to stay in Jesus. He's the center of attraction. I got to have fellowship with them. I got to have a relationship with them. I got to walk and talk with Jesus every day. I got to hear his voice so I won't follow strangers, because Satan is still seeking whom he may devour. But I got to resist steadfast in the faith. And I got to spend time with him. I got to get to know him.
Yes.
Do you see that? For the law of spirit of life in Christ Jesus have made me free from the law of sin and death. They are the law of sin and death. Sin produces death. The wages of sin is death. And Satan knows that he can trap us into this cycle of addiction, or this trap us in a cycle of unforgiveness, or different things, and we keep breaking the commandments of God, which are loving our neighbor as we do ourselves, loving God with all our heart, and loving our neighbor as we do ourselves. And he didn't give us to break the law of love, because the law of love is in the cycle of life. So Jesus came to free us from the law of sin and death that we could not get out. Now look at verse 3. For what the law could not do is that it was weak through the flesh. Why couldn't the law work? It was weak through the flesh. It was good, it was holy, it was just, but it was weak through the flesh. There was something on the inside. There was something like emotions moving in me, making me want to do it. Has somebody ever told you no? There are stuff you want to do, but they said not to do. Your mama said don't do it. I'm going to do it. All right. That emotions of sin in us. And it seduces you and makes you get off the mark. Why does the Bible say flee youthful lust? Because you know when we're 12, 13, 14, 15, we're controlled by our emotions. Youthful lust, rebellion is in us. Stubbornness is in us. And we have not learned the deep things of life. And when you're young, sometimes young ones are hard-headed. So God said, I'm going to teach you something. For the law could not do it, and it was weak through the flesh. God sent his son. Who did he send? His son. Who did he send? His son, Jesus, in the likeness of flesh. Had to be born of a virgin. Had to come to the birth canal. Had to take on a body. So he could feel what we felt, and we'll go through what we went through, so he could deliver us from the wages of sin. For God sent his own son in the likeness of sinful flesh. But see, he never committed any sin. There was no God in him. That's why he could pay for our sin. And for sin, and condemned sin in the flesh. He delivered us. Yay! Yippee! I'm delivered, I'm free. I couldn't get free in myself. I tried and I tried. But God has delivered me. God has set me free from that old Leona. I'm a new Leona now. Hallelujah! That's so good. Just one more verse from this Romans 8 and 4, because I want to see how much time. Nobody might give me a clock. For that the righteousness, verse 4, that the righteousness of the law might be fulfilled in us. What did God want to do? Fulfill the righteousness of the law. What did God want to do? Fulfill the righteousness of the law in us. Now I can keep the commandments. Now I can love my neighbors, I love myself. Now I can be a do-right Christian, do right? I just want to do right. I'm a do-right Christian now. I'm seeking first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things are added unto me. I'm seeking the face of God, and he's teaching me how to be just like him. Yeah. Hallelujah. But see, here's the other side. But they that are after the flesh do mind the things of the flesh. But they that after the spirit, the things of the flesh. Now beware, Christians, we can't watch all these As the World Turns TV shows. Amen. All these nighttime soap operas. They got all they doing is showing blood, flesh, fornication, adultery, all kind of deception and evil. Why should we be eating out the garbage can? When we should go to the table, to the table spread, and the feast going on, eat from the table of God and drinking spiritual life. But see, the world is offering us what? Spiritual death. For they that are after the flesh do mind the things of the flesh. Verse 5. And they that are after the spirit, the things of the spirit. So we got to seek the things of the spirit. For to be carnally minded is what? Death. But to be spiritually minded is life and peace. Because the carnal mind is enmity against God. For it is not subject to the law of God. Neither indeed can be. But then they are so then they that are in the flesh cannot please God. Can we please God in the flesh? No. Can we please God in the flesh? No. See, a like attracts like. Get away from people is having you do the wrong things. Run for the border. Get away from them. Cross the road to Kentucky Fried Chicken. Some of y'all need to wake up. Y'all start thinking about chicken now. Fried chicken. So if you're in the flesh, you can't please God. This is some yucky stuff here. But you are not in the flesh, but in the spirit. Somebody say, I am in the spirit.
I am in the spirit.
I asked Jesus to save me. I asked the Lord to come into my heart. So I'm born again. I'm not in the flesh. I choose to be in the spirit. If so be that the Spirit of God dwell in you. When you got saved, the Spirit of God came in. You got to know that. Now, if any man have not the Spirit of Christ, he is none of his. You're not even saved if you don't have the Spirit of Christ. So you have to be born again. Think for sure that you're born again. My whole life in church, I didn't know whether or not I was saved. Nobody had taken me through the plan of salvation at all. And so when they did that for me on college campus, and the man said, you ain't saved. I said, nope, I don't know for sure if I die today, if I go to heaven or not. And it just led me through a basic sinner's prayer. I stopped smoking. I stopped that drinking and that foolishness, that fornication. So many things I could think about and look back just like this just fell off. I was just doing it because everybody else was doing it. Because I was hanging around the wrong people. See, like produces like. You have to make sure that you're around a strong Christian. If you're going to get stronger, you can't hang out with weaklings. People that yield into their flesh all the time. If Christ is in you, the body is dead because of sin. See, Christ died for sin. That's the whole point. He died for sin.
Yes.
But the Spirit is life because of righteousness. I'm going to stop there. I can go on and on. But the Spirit is life because of righteousness. I come that you might have life and have it more abundantly. And so now Jesus is in the middle of it. He said, I'm going to teach you something. I'm going to teach you the tabernacle of David. When we started this church, we only had praise teams. We didn't have choir. We tried, but it didn't work. And Demona's a good position. My sister is a master musician, so I know we could have had a choir, but it just didn't work for a long time. And so then we were having praise team, and the Lord would teach us to sing until the Spirit came, until the new song came to the floor, until we began to prophesy. I began to find out this was the tabernacle of David, where you're singing and you're worshiping. See, you have to understand the Old Testament tabernacle of Moses was good. It wasn't a bad tabernacle, but it wasn't saving anybody. It wasn't delivering people. And so what happened was God said, Moses is not the one. It's the law of Moses was good. It kept us till Jesus came. The law was the schoolmaster till Jesus came. It kept us. It showed us the path of life. It showed us the oracles of God that they were holy. One thing about a Jew, they were awesome. Abraham taught his descendants and they kept his commandments. Listen, whatever Abraham said, that's what they do. You can go all over the world, you'll see Jews all acting the same way, looking the same way, because God knew that Abraham would be able to train his people. And he did a good job. They kept the covenant until we arrived. So you can't reject the old covenant and say, we're not, no. The law brought us this far until we met Jesus, the schoolmaster. He's the true son now. He's the keeper of the law. He's going to show us the path of life. Am I helping anybody here? Okay, I'm in Old Testament, 1 Chronicles. This is 1 Chronicles chapter 13. And David finally got a chance to become king after Saul fell on his sword because he had gone to the witch of Endor. We won't talk about that. We'll talk about that later. But we're not the six soothsayers or witches or crystal balls or anything like that. Stargazing, all that's against the word of God. We don't talk to the dead. And that's why King Saul died, because he would have consulted a witch. In chapter 13 of 1 Chronicles, David consulted with the captains of thousands, hundreds, with every leader. And David said unto all the congregation of Israel, if it seem good unto you that it may be the Lord our God, let us send abroad our brethren everywhere that are left in all the land of Israel, and with also all the priests and the Levites, which are all their cities and suburbs, that they may gather themselves unto us. And let us bring again the ark of God to us, for we are inquired not at the times of the days of Saul. So they were even inquiring at the ark of God in the days of Saul, the ark, the presence of God. And all the congregation said they would do so, for the thing was right in the eyes of all the people. So David gathered all of Israel together from Shihar of Egypt until the entry of Heman, and he to bring the ark of God from Keilah of Jearim. And David went up and all the Israel to Balaam, that is to Kiriath-jearim, which belonged to Judah, to bring up thence the ark of God, the Lord, that dwelleth between the cherubims, whose name is called on it. And so that's the ark had those cherubs around it, these cherubs. And they knew the presence of God was there. What was in the ark? 10 Commandments, some manna, and the rod, Aaron's rod that budded. That was all in the ark, representing the presence of God. And those angels was covering the ark at both ends. So they carried the ark of God in a new cart out of the house of Abinadab, and Uzziah and Ahio drave the cart. And David and all of Israel played before God with all their might, with singing and with harps, with psalteries, with timbrels, with cymbals, and with trumpets. Notice, David had all these instruments, all of this music before the ark of God, the presence of God, as he's bringing in the presence of God. It seems like a good thing David is doing here. When it came into the threshing floor of Cheetah, Uzziah put forth his hand to hold the ark, for the oxen stumbled. So he's doing a good thing. He's trying to keep it from stumbling. And the anger of the Lord was kindled against Uzziah and smote him. He died right there. Because he put his hand to the ark, and there he died before the Lord. He was doing a good thing, but the wrong thing at the same time. He was supposed to touch that ark. And then David had to go back and find out what was going on. And David was displeased because God had made a breach upon Uzziah. For the place is called Per Uzziah in this day. That is the breach of Uzziah. And David was afraid of God that day. See, a lot of us need to get afraid of God.
Amen. Amen.
A lot of people are not scared of God. They'll do anything in the house of God now. They'll say anything. Tell off-course jokes. Some of this stuff is not Christian-like, and it's unholy. And David was afraid of God that day, said, how shall I bring up the ark of God home to me? So David brought not the ark home to himself to the city of David, but carried it aside to the house of Obed-Edom the Gittite. And the ark of God remained with the family of Obed-Edom in his house 3 months. And the Lord blessed the house of Obed-Edom and all that they had. What happened with the ark there? There was blessings. The presence of God. What had David done? He had failed to obey God and do it the right way. See, we can have good intentions as musicians, but we can try to bring the presence of God in the wrong way. Now hiring the king of Tyre and messengers to David, timbers of cedar with masons and carpenters to build him an house. But no, David wanted to build God an house. He wanted to build God an house. And so God, I'm going to skip around. Let me skip to a different chapter. Okay, chapter 15. And David made him houses in the city of David and prepared a place for the ark of God and pitched for it a tent. David's heart was to build God a house. We're in a church right now. He wanted to build for God a big house. That was his heart. Then David said, none ought to carry the ark of God but the Levites. So now he's finding out who's supposed to carry the ark of God. So now they say Levites. They set apart. They're like deacons, but these are singers. They're consecrated. Nobody's supposed to carry the ark but the singers. For him had the Lord chosen to carry the ark of God to minister unto him forever. So these Levites were chosen. We just had a Levite conference here in Saginaw. And David gathered all the Israel together to Jerusalem to bring up the ark of the Lord into his place which he had prepared for it. And David assembled the children of Aaron and the Levites and the sons of Korath and Uriah the chief and his brethren and 120. And of the sons of Merari and all these different tribes that were worshiping tribes, they were Levites. He got them all together. And when you study it, there were so many of each kind. In verse number 11, and David called Zadok and Abiathar the priest for the Levites, and Uriel, and Isaiah, and Joel, and Shemaiah, and Email, and Abinadab, and said unto them, you are the chief of the fathers of the Levites. Sanctify yourselves, both ye and your brethren, that ye may bring up the ark of the Lord God of Israel into the place that I prepared for it. Because you did it not at first, the Lord our God made a breach upon us, for we sought him not after due order. Somebody say due order. They do it the right way. I know we are cool now, and we got split up our dresses, and we wearing diva dresses, and we got big old earrings, but it looks like you a clown or something, like you a show. You're supposed to cover your body up. We shouldn't have boobies sticking out. Clothes shouldn't be tight. You're supposed to cover up your humanity.
Well,
that's why the priests came, because they didn't do it after due order. They did what they wanted to do. So the priests and the Levites sanctified themselves. Somebody say, sanctify yourself. Say, sanctify yourself. They say, do the test. Do the sit-down test. If you can't sit down and not bust that dress, don't wear that dress. Come on, man. Same thing for you, too. You ain't got to have your shirt on down here. I don't want to see no hair. Cover up. When you go home, you can go what you want to do with your wife, but not here. And so here it is in verse 15. And the children of the Levites bear the ark of God upon their shoulders with the staves thereof, as Moses commanded according to the word of the Lord. The law of Moses. Do what Moses said do. I gave Moses the pattern. They had to obey everything that God told Moses. Because God showed Moses when he was up there on the mount of pattern, and Moses wrote the first 5 books of the Bible. So you got to obey this pattern I've given Moses. And David spake to the chief of the Levites to appoint their brethren to be singers with the instruments of music. So they got people appointing singers, instruments of music, psalteries, harps, cymbals, sounding by the lifting up the voices with joy. So they were singing beautiful. We should make this praise glorious. God ain't against instruments. There's one denomination that they won't saving everybody because they don't have no instruments. But they do sing wonderfully a cappella, they can sing pretty good. So the Levites appointed Heman the son of Joel and of his brother, and Asaph the son of Berchai, and the sons of Beri their brethren, and Ethan the son of Cushiah, within their brother the second degree. They have different degrees of musician. There was second degree and first degree. And this verse number 19, so the singers, Heman, Asaph, and Ethan, were appointed to sound with cymbals of brass. And then there was verse 20, these were with psalteries of the album of different instruments. And you can go to the Bible dictionary and look up all these instruments. And then it says in verse 21, where harps on the Sheminith to excel. And Shemaiah, a chief of the Levites, was for song. He instructed about the song because he was skillful. They say he was writing them down. Here at church once, a person came in, we were getting ready for a big event at the Dow Event Center, and we were working on the music, and they had appointed us to do the music. And she said, you know what, you think that you're not significant because you don't play the piano, but you have the Shemaiah anointing. And I had to look it up. Shemaiah, the chief of the Levites, was for song. He instructed about the song because he was skillful. When I got saved and filled with the Holy Ghost and we started this church, I could hear in the spirit the songs we should sing. I would write them down. When I would have Bible studies and I would do songs, I could write you a whole list from the songs. When we did our TV show on TCT, I would write the list, and Demona would take them and put them in musical order. But I would hear the songs and write, and I would go in the hymn book, get traditional lists on holiness, on the blood, on so many different. I wrote so many different lists you wouldn't know it. I didn't know it was that Shemaiah anointed. I said, we missed God. We should have sang this song right there. We sang this one too long. God said, short dog that one. When the anointing is there, don't leave and go nowhere. Don't leave the anointing. If the anointing on the song, praise leaders, if y'all playing, don't leave the anointing. Stay with the anointing. I had a friend, she might have 15 songs on the list. She could do every song. The anointing had been left the building. She had to do every one. She was so rigid. See, you got to be able to learn to flow with the Spirit. Don't overflow, don't underflow, just flow with the Spirit. And that takes practice too. So praise team, come together, pray in the Spirit. Worship before you start singing. Because it's not always about the correct song, but it's the right spirit. You can sing old music and it's still anointed. Y'all know that, right? Sometimes we need to go back to some old landmarks that we haven't sung in a while because there's something that God said, don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. Go back and pick up some of your old music. So Shaniah, the chief of the Levite, was the song. He instructed about the song because he was skillful. And Rechiah and Elkanah was doorkeepers for the ark. And all this good stuff was happening. And so it says in 24 we see trumpets and let's see. And so verse 25, so David and the elders of Israel and the captains over 1,000 went to bring up the ark of the covenant of the Lord out of the house of Obed-Edom with joy. And it came to pass when God helped the Levites, they bare the ark of the covenant of the Lord. They offered 7 bullocks and 7 bullocks and 7 rams. Listen, they weren't going to mess up. 7. They were offering up sacrifices before they were bringing up the presence of God. They were giving those offerings. They was giving that praise and worship. They would say, we're going to do it right. It's covered with the blood. And it came to pass, when the Lord helped the Levites, they bear the ark of the covenant, they offered 7 bullocks and 7 rams. And David was clothed with a robe of fine linen. Why did he have on a priestly robe when he was king? He took off his priestly robe, the kingly robe, and put on a priest robe. See, you have to humble yourself. The pastor's got to praise God. Some of the pastors think they're the praise inspectors. They just sit there and look. No, we're supposed to be participators. God will take care of anybody that's not right. He will show us that. I remember Bishop Pryor used to say, I'm the chief praiser here. And when they had prayer, he was right there at prayer at every prayer service they had. He was a man of God, a man of excellence. We have to be the same way. All of us need to praise God. Do you see Apostle dance? Yeah. Do you see Apostle sing? Yeah. When we first got saved, he didn't do none of that stuff he's doing now. The Lord began to teach him over the years how to yield to the Spirit. He used to couldn't preach a sermon unless he held his paper and looked at every word. But now he's free now. He can flow and preach his sermon because he's learned how to obey the Spirit. Yes. So here's David obeying the Spirit. Clothed with what? A robe, fine linen. And all the Levites bear the ark, and the singers, Shaniah, the master song, with the singers. David also had for him an ephod of linen. Because all Israel brought up the ark of the covenant of the Lord with what? Shouting, with the sound of the cornet, with the trumpets, with cymbals, making noise with psalm, priests, and harp. Does it sound quiet? Is it blessed quietness? So, when you're in the house of God, should you be quiet all the time? Sometimes there is holy quietness when we barak and kneel before God and worship like that on our faces. Alright? But here they're bringing up with all this musical instrument. When you look at the tabernacle of Moses, let me look. Number 1, none. Singers and singing in David's tabernacle. Instruments of music in David's tabernacle. Levi's ministry before the harp in David's tabernacle. But only in Moses' tabernacle, only the high priest only. They're doing recording. David's having them write music now in the tabernacle of David. There was no writing of music in the tabernacle of Moses. There was no thinking and giving offerings in the tabernacle of Moses. But in David's, and then praise, so much praise in the tabernacle of David. There was none in the tabernacle of Moses. Psalm singing in the tabernacle of David, number 7. None only in Psalm 90 only. Rejoicing and joy in the tabernacle of David. And number 8 was commanded, but you could do it if you wanted to. And then there was clapping, and there was no clapping in the tabernacle of Moses. So a lot of us was raised in the tabernacle of Moses. Don't you move. You better not cry. In our church, if you caused any disturbance, they took you down to the basement. They sure did. Don't cry, don't clap, don't do nothing. Because we hadn't been taught the ways of God. We just have been taught traditional ways. So we didn't know any better. We didn't know that lifting holy hands was scripturally correct. We didn't know that barking was correct. We never did a lot that I can remember, except when we came to the altar to take communion. So what I'm saying, there's a lot of traditions we've been taught in the church. Now we untaught those traditions. We stand up and we lift up our hands. Everybody stand up and raise their hands up in the air so you can get a little exercise. Everybody stand up and raise their hands. When we start doing this, we felt strange.
Yeah.
We said, are we the only ones going to do this? And then it got real natural. Then we started dancing. Back then it was the Happy Hunters. We were doing the can-can. We would kick our little feet and stuff. We had a lot of fun. You could sit down. And then we learned how to pray in the Spirit and sing songs in the Spirit. And we were dancing. There was clapping. There was shouting. It was joyful. Right? You got the scriptures here. You can look them all up because there's so many. We learned to clap our hands and shout Shabbat. When Dr. Hammond was here, he taught us Shabbat in a different way to open the heavens. And there was dancing. See, the world took the dancing, but the church is taking the dancing back. We're supposed to praise God at the dance. And so a lot of people, they don't praise God at the dance. And the Lord taught me, the first thing he taught me was dancing. And I didn't know what was happening. Boy, it was different. I was back really well back then. My head would hit the pew and everything because I didn't know what to do with it. But later on, the Lord began to teach me about dancing better and hearing the Spirit, flow with the Spirit. You don't always have to be loud. You can be quiet. You can have a reverential spirit. If the Spirit is moving in a quiet manner, you can be quiet. You don't have to be loud 100% of the time. So there's dancing, number 11. Then lifting up hands. You got to study this out because there's two words for the lifting of hands. There's Toda and Yada. There's two different types of hands lifting. And there's a worship, excessive bowing. And you know what? Some of us never get to worship because we never really praise God. And then seeking the Lord. This is part of the tabernacle of David. And they sought the tabernacle and Moses too. And then spiritual sacrifice. We bring the sacrifice of praise to the house of God, number 15. And then the amen and blessing. And part of saying, yes, Lord, we want the blessing. And you got to study this for yourself. But I want you to understand something. The tabernacle of David was a tabernacle of praise and worship. Prophecy, prayer, power. It's the tabernacle of David that killed Goliath. It wasn't the tabernacle of Saul. It wasn't King Saul. It was David, a man after God's own heart that could hear the Spirit. And he could sit there and be psalming, and he could say, the Spirit of the Lord, and the Lord is my shepherd. And he prophesied so many things. There were so many revelations that was given to David. How do you think all of a sudden that David realized that we should be singing and having instruments and 24-hour Levitical priesthood offering thanksgiving? All this came through David, not through Moses. Lord, why did you choose David? He said, he's a man after my own heart. And I'm going to have the son of David sit on the throne forever. He prophesied he was going to use David. So Jesus is the son of David. He's the son of prophecy. He's the son of praise and worship. That's our Jesus. So why should we be praising and worshiping? Because Jesus wants us to. And guess what happens? When you praise and worship, revelation comes. You can hear the voice of God. You can hear the new song. You can hear the word of the Lord. God will show you something. You can see something through the tabernacle of David. You learn how to worship. He said, I give you the keys of David, that you can worship and open doors that nobody can close. And then you can close doors nobody can open. I've given you the key of David. I've given you the key of revelation. What did he tell? He told Peter, flesh and blood didn't reveal this to you, but my Father in heaven. He said, who am I, Peter? Thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God. Well, how did you learn that, Peter? Are you so smart? He said, no. Jesus said, it was my Father that revealed it to you. So the tabernacle of David is a key that you open up revelation. As we praise and worship and open our spirit, God will show us things. Oh, hallelujah. God will show us things. We will hear his voice. We will hear his voice. And we will follow strangers. We will sing a new song. We will prophesy. Come on, come on. We will do these things. Why? Because it's spiritually correct. Somebody say spiritually correct. I don't want to be religious. I was raised religious my whole life. And when I found Jesus, I really found Jesus. And he taught me the value of praise. and he took away a spirit of heaviness out of my life, a spirit of depression out of my life. He took that spirit of mourning out of my life because I had to fight. I had to fight through in my own heart. I had to fight the root of bitterness and unforgiveness and hatred and so many things that have come. You know, some of us hold grudges pretty good. And the Holy Ghost has to help us. What he did for me, I'll be in the pulpit. He said, let it go. You know what he said? What you talking about? He said, let it go. Praise and worship will change your life. The tabernacle of David will change your life. So me and the apostle don't want to come here by ourselves, be the only one prophesying, the only one singing new songs, the only one moving in the gifts of the Spirit. The gifts of the Spirit is for the whole body of Christ.
Yes.
Anybody can lay hands on the sick and they shall recover. Did you hear what I'm saying? They shall lay hands on the sick and they shall recover. These signs shall follow them that believe. Come on, say these signs. The follow the believer. Say I'm a believer. I'm a believer. Say Jesus used me. Say Jesus used me. Hallelujah. So since we've had this church, I've had healing schools, cleansing stream, taught all type of lessons on different topics because we go to the Word. What does the Word say? Not to what traditions say, not what your denomination says. What does the Word say? Somebody say full gospel. Not quarter gospel. Not half gospel. But all the Word. Say do whatever Jesus said do. And that's where we are right now. We're going to be having WWF. We're going to be different groups in here worshiping. Thursday night, my son will be teaching from a Red Life Church on Thursday night, opening up at 7 p.m. That is September 19th. On Friday, we have the Worship Explosion on the 20th. And then Saturday, workshops. We got some awesome workshop speakers going to be speaking for us. And then we have spaghetti luncheon. And we have food after every service. And this year, it's going to be an exciting year because I know, because God told me, I heard it as clear as day, the floor. He said, this means war. He said, this means war. You can't have my family. You can't have my breakthrough. You can't. This means war. Something the blood is against you. Somebody say the blood is against you. The blood is against you. And I'm ready. He said, come on, soldier. Put on your armor. He said, come on, soldier. Put on your armor. It's not time to retreat, but it's time to fight. Come on, your side. Say, I will. Fight this battle. I finished. Hallelujah. Listen, for those who are serious students of the Bible, I got the books back there. I have some of my ministers help me teach them. Prophetess Bobby got one too. She ordered her. I think Pat Hampton may have one. But these are worth having and studying. But it would take a while because it's much detailed teaching. It's not little baby stuff. It's not fluffy. And then the other books I have on the Tabernacle, David will take you through every aspect of dancing, your feet, standing, all the scriptural texts, the Hebrew and everything, the Greek. It's just wonderful. But who wants to do it? Who has the time? Because Bobby, though, when I came here and did that on a Tuesday, it took me about 3 hours for a little bit, didn't it? I mean, I'm kind of slow teaching now. So if you got the time, I got the time. Because see, I'm going to pour into you so you can pour into other people. Amen. That's what we do here. We pour in so you can pour out. That's right. Amen. So you can grow too. Yeah. So when I stand before God, it won't be saying, oh Lord, I kept everything secret for myself. It was my own personal revelation. No. It's for the body. We're supposed to share with one another. So let's pray. Father, right now, we don't want to be religious. We're looking for miracles. People need miracles. We see people on Sid Roth and Pastor Maldonado's services getting miracles. Dr. Hammond said he saw a hand grow out in front of his face at Pastor Maldonado's service. He saw a hand grow out. Miracles are happening all over the world. We want miracles to happen. Miracles to happen in Saginaw, Michigan. We want miracles to happen all over the world. These signs shall follow them that believe. We believe that you are. We believe that you are. And we want more of you, God. And we want to be used of you, God. And we're preparing an atmosphere for habitation. We're preparing an atmosphere for habitation. Holy Spirit, you are welcome in this place. Holy Spirit, you are welcome in this place. And we want you to use your people, God. Not just the pastor, not just the apostle or elder, all the people, all the believers. These signs shall follow them that believe. So we're expecting, God, supernatural intervention of God. We promise not to touch the glory. We promise not to touch the glory. It's not about us, it's all about you. Bring the upside. Service then. I was preaching on healing. There was a stranger in the audience who came up to me afterwards and said, when you were preaching, I think it was the Pool of Bethesda, he said, my ear open, I can hear now. Yes, you know, God did. We don't know when God's going to do a miracle. At WWF, a lady was sitting over here, got healed of a bleeding ulcer. While we were sitting there, saw miracles. And then another person jumped in here, but jumped and said he felt the Pool of Bethesda. The person jumped in and was healed. So we want you to start praying right now. Right now. WWF starts September 19th. We want you to pray right now because who knows who God is going to use. Be ready to pray for the sick. Be ready to pray for the sick. You never know who God's going to use, and there's going to be a manifestation. Hallelujah of the glory of God. Anyone, everybody saved here today? You know that you're saved. You don't want to be like me in church and just religious and just going through the motions and not really saved. Ask Jesus to come into your heart to save you. Not saying you're not going to have challenges in your life, because you will have some challenges, but you ask him to come in. You catch the fish before you clean the fish. Somebody say, catch the fish. Is that right? You catch the fish before you clean it. It could be wiggling out on the line, but you still caught it. Right? Get the person saved. Bring them to church. See, here's where we mess up, y'all. You bring them to church. You bug them. You bug them off the hook. You come on, you gonna go to church with me. My sister Joyce will go pick up some people. She was working for us here at the church. She was our praise team leader, Sunday school superintendent. She go pick up people. She bring them to church drunk. She didn't care. Get up and get your clothes on. By the time they got here, they were sober. So what am I saying? Bring people to church. Bug them. He said, I want my house filled. He said, I want my house filled. So it's our responsibility to bring in the sheep. When you start doing that, when y'all start praying about who should come to WWF, who you can help sponsor, okay? To me, this is an important year. I feel that the battle is the Lord, but the victory is ours. So please come, and we love you today. Thank you, Sister Bridget, for being here. All the way from Alabama, yeah. We love you, Linda. My sister Mary is back from traveling. Her ministry is exploding in the road. She'll keep it to a lot of preaching. And we love all our leaders. We love you all. Thank you, Lord. Good praise and worship. Awesome. Thank you for all my servants in the house. Come on, servants. Pastor Sean again. Yeah. Come on up here. Good job today.
Praise the Lord. Praise God. And we're going to have our benediction, which is found in Numbers, the 6th chapter of Numbers, the 24th through the 26th verse. Would you all stand, please? The Lord bless thee and keep thee. The Lord make his face shine upon thee and be gracious unto thee. Lord lift up his countenance upon thee and give thee peace. And thou shalt put my name upon the children of Israel, and I will bless them.
I will.
I will bless them.
Yes.
Go in peace. Make Jesus the center of your attraction. Amen.
The men that are going to do Christ Unity at the board, come up here so we can have a little rehearsal.
All right, little rehearsal. Come on in. We need y'all. They wait for y'all to say. Praise.